בשם השם נעשה ונצליח, שיעור תורה, שבוע טוב, שבוע מבורך. We are continuing our series of the Jewish HaShkafa. Tonight, BeEzrat Hashem, we'll go into another section of the Chazon Ish here, based on his Sefer Emunah veBitachon. Tonight's shiur will be for first off a big mazal tov for Rav Ephraim and Rabbanit Sarah for a new baby girl. Baruch Hashem, just in the last couple of hours ago, a brand new baby girl, Tzadikah, was added to the world. So the shiur will be for a refuah shlema for Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Tinoket bat Sarah. Also a big mazal tov to Rabbi Ephraim's sister and Pnina bat Shulamit and our husband for a brand new baby, also Pnina Ilani. So a refuah shlema for Pnina bat Shulamit and Ilani bat Pnina. Also a refuah shlema to Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, David ben Esriya, Doris bat Jora, Yitro ben Avraham, Talia bat Sarah, Esther Malka bat Sarah, Moshiach ben Avigail veAvraham, Orit bat Ilana, and also a Atzlacha Rabba to Marsha bat Julie, Ayla bat Marsha, Samuel ben Marsha, Cephas ben Marsha, Alexander ben Marsha, Louis ben Marsha, Shaul ben Farzane, Reuven Chaim ben Pala Parel, Yitro ben Avraham, Oshri ben Doris, Gabi ben Doris, Elad ben Doris, David ben Esriya, Joshua ben Noach, Alex ben Noach, and also Netanel Yosef ben Avraham. הקדוש ברוך הוא יברך אותם בכל מכל כל, חיים ארוכים, שלמים, מלאים תורה, מצוות, גמילות חסדים, them and all of the other wonderful supporters that we have that continue to contribute in every way, and also for a big atzlacha rabba for all of the righteous Noahides, the Jews, for the people that are contributing in making the movies. We just came out with another new short film today. We're working on a few really big ones. Aside from that, Baruch Hashem, will come out very soon. So lots of good stuff going on, despite the difficulty that's in the world. Now, of course, everyone has heard the tragedy that happened here in Florida just a few days ago, where a building collapsed in the middle of the night with everyone that was in it. Hashem Yishmor, this is only about a half hour away from my house, maybe even less, and it's in a Jewish community, and it's a unfortunate situation that everyone can say what they want to say, the building codes, the construction of the building, the earthquake, the this, the that. The reality is, as we said in the movie that was released earlier today, all of the tragedies that are happening in the world, whether it's tragedies that are happening to individual people or they're happening to entire communities, it's Hashem. It's not a earthquake. It's not a anti-Semitism. It's not anything else. It's Hashem. It's Hashem simply telling us that He's asking us to do more tshuva, to care more about each other, but not in a sense like we've been taught as children, which is care enough about each other to invite each other over for coffee, and perhaps care enough each other to invite each other for for our bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, and care enough about each other about enough not to insult each other. Those are all good too, but the biggest caring that a person can do is by helping his brother do tshuva. If you're going to care enough about your brother, care enough about your sister, to cry at night during the Churban Bet HaMikdash that we have today, during this destruction that we have, you're going to cry over your brother and sister and because they have not done tshuva yet. Even if they're frum, but they're not 100% where they need to be. Cry about yourself, that you're not 100% where you need to be. do something about it. Try to give out CDs. Try to arrange lectures. Try to give out all types of Torah material to give chizuk to the community, whether they are frum already in the frumest community in the country, or they're completely secular and they're holding up gay parade flags. If they are part of the nation, we need to cry over it. We need to cry over them and to really do something about it. Because the tragedies, I don't know if anybody else is noticing it, but I know at least a couple of people have mentioned it to me, but I'm not sure if it's the masses are noticing it, but most of these big tragedies are happening to us, to our people. Of course you can say coronavirus was an international disaster. Sure, it was. But if you see what ramifications it actually had in Israel versus the rest of the world, you'll see how the economic decline, the disaster that happened to families in Israel was much worse than other places. And if that's not worse, it's not bad enough, then we had the whole tragedy in Meron, where you had a bunch of tzaddikim trying to pray for salvation, pray for for the nation, and in the process die in a awful, horrific, strange death where the whole place collapsed, and obviously you had a 45 tzaddikim die. And before we were able to even complete the mourning on those 45 tzaddikim, another disaster happened, where another group of people died, Hashem Yishmor, in a similar fashion. Singing for the sake of Hashem, having a Torah celebration, if you will, which of course confuses the few that do not understand the creed that's in the world, to say, oh, wait a minute, how come all the religious people are dying? Maybe it's not worth it to be religious, or some other form of stupidity that the Yetzer Hara puts into people's heads. But the reality is that it couldn't be further from the truth. It's that this is the time more than ever to get closer to Hashem, and the reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu is giving us these major tests, these major tragedies, is to simply wake us up. To wake us up in the religious community, wake us up in the non-religious community, to show us that these tragedies are happening to us, regardless of whether you're Hasidi, or you're Sephardi, or you're Ashkenazi, or you're Litai, or you're secular, whatever you are. You see that these tragedies are happening everywhere. And if that wasn't enough, we had the tragedy a few days ago. Literally an anomaly that the only thing that it can remind me of is the visual of the September 11th destruction of the buildings, where they fell within a matter of a couple of seconds, like as if they were detonated. This building did exactly the same thing in a matter of a few seconds, just completely destroyed. Baruch Hashem, some part of it was left and some people survived, but nonetheless, at least 150 people are missing right now. And you see that there is, according to the Torah, we look into the Gemara to understand what the written Torah is saying to us. This is the reason why when we say Torah, we're always referring to both the written and the oral Torah. Simply because the one can't survive without the other. And the Gemara says to us that although the Sanhedrin is no longer here and the Bet Mikdash is no longer here, and thereby there is no more a death penalty in the world, surely the death penalty has not been abolished, but rather it's been taken over by HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. And you see that these people, I don't know who they are. I don't know anyone of their cheshbonot. And BeEzrat Hashem, this shiur will be for the Ilui Nishmat of all of those that have passed, and for the merit of those that are still alive. BeEzrat Hashem, they will be able to survive this, to be able to do complete tshuva, to be able to tell us about the miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them, to get them out of the situation that they're in right now, which seems like an impossibility. But nonetheless, you see that there is several different forms of death penalty happening in this building. You have the building collapsing itself, which the Gemara says if there's someone runs over somebody, a bull runs over into somebody, or a building collapses, or things of that nature, that's the equivalent of stoning. So you have that, you have the stoning, you have the fire. Somebody says that there is a fire over there, and also you have chenek. So already 3 different forms of the 4 death penalties already in this disaster, and surely this is rectifying for different situations that different people had, but nonetheless, it's our job is not to criticize who did what and who did this, because we have no idea even of our own cheshbonot, of our own accounting in heaven. But what we can know is that on a general perspective, each one of us has a responsibility to take this divine rebuke, and apply it to their own life, and see that this was not so far from home. This is something that's part of your nation. This is perhaps something that happened in your neighborhood. This happened to somebody that you know. And surely HaKadosh Baruch Hu is thereby talking to you. He's talking to me. He's talking to each and every single one of us, and He's expecting each and every one of us to start doing tshuva. And if we don't start taking this stuff seriously, if we don't start taking these divine retributions seriously, they're just simply going to keep coming, Hashem Yishmo. And it's bizarre that the people have not yet done tshuva for the coronavirus alone. How many people have died already? How many people have pretty much, even if they didn't physically die, they mentally have died because of their behavior since the coronavirus thing started, whether it's their behavior of their fear of the virus or of the vaccine or of anything in between them. You see that people have completely altered their lives, and those lives will never go back to be the same. And yet, unfortunately, it has not made enough people do tshuva, where a lot of people are simply going back to life. And it appears to be that this may be the reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu is bringing back Corona as we speak with a vengeance, where right now the government of Israel is already talking about how the masks have to go back on, even though practically the entire country took the vaccine, because the vaccine didn't work. Simply, it didn't work. A bunch of different people that have had the vaccine got the new strand of Corona. Some people have told me that a bunch of people already died. I don't know this to be a fact, but because I don't follow the news so closely, but nonetheless, if they're bringing back the masks, and they're already talking about enclosing the country again, going back to the same nightmare that people had last year, you could pretty much be rest assured that it's only a matter of time before it's coming to your country, whether you're here in the U.S. or you are in the UK or anywhere else. Bottom line is, Hashem seems like He's bringing it back. Hashem Yishmo v'yatzil. And people that are not realizing that this is a divine hand. This is nothing else. This is not the doctors. This is not a conspiracy. This is not some type of financial gain for any. This is, bottom line, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself saying, we did not get the message. We didn't get the message. We simply are not getting it. We're not getting it. We're simply continuing with our stupidity. We're continuing to call everything a happenstance, everything a coincidence, everything a conspiracy, everything some type of anything but Hashem. Anything but Hashem. Literally, this nightmare that we've had in the last year has been called everything but the hand of Hashem by most people. And it's time that people wake up, but they don't wake up, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings more disasters. And for anyone to make sure that nobody's confused, He's talking about us, the Jewish people. He's not talking about the Goyim that are serving idols on a regular basis, and in some cases destroying their idols like they're doing in India right now. But not all of their idols, just the idol that didn't work last time. And continuing to a different level of stupidity. He's talking to us. Why? Because we have more disasters in the last year than anybody else. And we care more about our people than anybody else. If you have 15,000 Chinese people die in China, nobody even knows. You had a massacre happen in Syria where the president himself was killing 300,000 of his own people. Most people don't even know it happened. The types of disasters that are happening in other countries, it's not even reported in the news most of the time because simply the Goyim don't care about each other. There is no unification between the Chinese and the Russian. The Russian and the Syrians. No one really cares about each other. There is no unity among the Goyim. And even about themselves. The Chinese don't care about the Chinese, and many times the Russians don't care about the Russians. But the Jews, we are obligated by the Torah to care about each other. We're obligated by the Torah to love each other, to care enough about each other to the extent where we care that another Jew died somewhere else, or that another Jew is spiritually dead right now. But for whatever reason or another, instead of doing that, we're not. We're not doing it. We're doing something else. We're caring about our stock portfolio. I have more questions that people are asking me about what I think they should invest in, or what they should buy or sell, or if I think some other meme stock is going to go up. Then I have people asking me, what do you think about this new KIRUV strategy that I have to help such and such do tshuva? Surely I have some tzaddikim asking me about that, of trying to help other people do tshuva. But if I had to guess how many people want to ask the question about stock market and investments versus the spiritual investments, you could pretty much assume it's not the spiritual investments. You could pretty much assume it's not the spiritual investments. Why? Because we all care about our own pocket. There are literally millions of people dying in the world, people getting divorces, people committing suicide, people going addicted to drugs, people dying from drugs, people literally living a living nightmare, but people care so much about those people that they can't help themselves but perhaps buy a stock that has to do with drugs. This, Rabotai, is why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us more nightmares. And if we don't wake up, we're simply going to see the world destroyed, worse than it already is. We don't need a third war. We don't need a third world war for it. We see HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just fighting by himself, just finally to wake us up. And unfortunately, the types of leaders that we have today are very eclectic type. You have some great leaders that are speaking to their communities, but unfortunately they're not strong enough to speak to the whole world. No one's listening to them. Even if they said something, even if Rav Kanievsky, Shichyeh, Kodesh Kodeshim, says something, the vast majority of the world is not going to listen. That's just a reality. It's a reality. They may listen to donate to some tzedakah campaign that every Tuesday and Wednesday goes up and says that Rav Kanievsky says, if you donate, you'll get a bracha for me. You're going to have a bunch of millions of dollars being donated to that campaign, but that's not because Rav Kanievsky said, and they do. That's only because there's a so-called promise that if they donate to this campaign that he said, then they'll get something that they want, whether it's a zivug, or it's more money, or it's some other self-interest. It's not because Rav Kanievsky said it. It's because of self-interest. So Rav Kanievsky and the other Gdolim, unfortunately people ask me this question all the time. How come the Gdolim are not screaming? They are. You're just not listening. They are. The Gdolim are screaming. They said don't wear wigs. You're still wearing a wig. They said don't drive on Shabbos. You're still driving on Shabbos. They said all types of things. No one wants to listen. So you have leaders like this. No one wants to listen to them. Then you have other types of leaders. You have leaders that are simply only big enough to influence their own community. They're only big enough to influence their own community, and even that they're battling. Why? Because they're afraid that if they really say the whole truth, the community will fire them. The community will fire them. Either that's because of their own self-creation of being too soft in the community, or because simply the community is just comprised of many Reshaim that do not want to listen to the truth. So the rabbi, the leader, can't say the whole truth. That's another unfortunate case that we have much of in the world. Then you have the leaders that have their lectures on the internet and share their lectures on the internet and perhaps get a lot of views, get a lot of people to watch. And even there you have a mixed batch. What's the mixed batch? Some of them are going to teach you things that are exactly as Hashem said to Moshe in Har Sinai. Exactly as Hashem said. He said this, you need to do this. He said act this way, you need to act this way. And they're going to say whatever they're going to say. Sometimes they're talking to a computer screen. Sometimes they're talking to a crowd. Whatever the case may be, they're reading exactly, or they're saying exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu. But unfortunately, those are few and far in between. A big part of the people that are speaking on the internet today, or at least a big part of the impact that is coming from the internet today, is no different than pornography. No different than all of the immorality in the world, where it's disastrous for your neshama. Simply, they're giving you the version of Torah that's the equivalent of pornography, where it's there to destroy your neshama, by telling you all types of heretical things, things that were not heard at Mount Sinai, things that were not spoken by our sages, but rather things that their own philosophical, rationalist mind is telling the people. And instead of leading people closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His mitzvot, they lead them further. And in fact, they make them hate what has become the accepted form of Orthodox Judaism today. They make them hate listening to the great rabbis. They make them hate listening to the great sages. They make them mock these things, and this happens on a regular basis, whether it's the people that we've mentioned, like Manis Friedman and Meza and all the people that we've mentioned, or it's others that we don't know about, but nonetheless, this seems to be continuing and unfortunately continues to grow. And it is up to us as individuals to take the Torah by the hand and start learning it like we're supposed to, and understand enough to know the difference between right or wrong. Because right now, it's your own survival. And I don't mean just your own survival physically, but your own survival spiritually is going to depend on whether you not only care enough about your own neshama, you not only care enough about your own family's neshama, but rather you start caring enough about Am Yisrael's neshama. Rather you care enough about the sake of the honor of the Torah, the neshama of the Torah. Because if we continue to care only about our own pockets, our own looks, our own names, our own this, our own that, Rabotai Karim, things are not going to improve. Things are not going to improve. Perhaps this is the reason why the Chachamim in the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin said that they want the Mashiach to come, but they don't want to be alive when it does, because the world will be in a disaster state. It will be in a disastrous state when the Mashiach comes. Perhaps this is what they were talking about, where it says that the chutzpah will be everywhere. The arrogance will be everywhere. Humility will be nowhere to be found. And true wisdom of the Torah will be mocked. These are the things that the Chachamim said and already knew almost 2,000 years ago. As you will see, all listed one by one in Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin, Gemara Masechet Sotah, page 49b, and many other places where the Chachamim talk about the days of Mashiach. We are in those days. Whether he's going to come tomorrow or in 10 years from now, no one knows. But surely we do know that we are in those days, and we are in a time where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is upping the ante. And it's up to each and every single one of us to start taking the Torah by the hand and realizing that to help yourself includes, number one, learning enough Torah in order to fulfill everything you possibly can know. Everything you could possibly do. That's one of your Torah obligations. Second Torah obligation is to help everyone you possibly know at least see the truth. At least see the truth. Whether they decide to follow it or not, that's their prerogative. But you at least have to do something about it. And it doesn't necessarily need to be your immediate circle of friends that you care about and have a little bit of a bias on. It could be a bunch of strangers. Just imagine if each one of us cared enough about the Torah and we would all do it for the sake of the Torah. So we would just simply do whatever we can to help strangers. So each one of us would help the different community. I'm going to help Lakewood. You're going to help Muncie. Another person's going to help Florida in North Miami Beach. Another one's going to help in a different community in Uruguay. Everyone's going to help somebody else. Before you know it, your own home is going to be helped too. But because everybody treats this as if it's their own mission, they have to help only their own friends and their own family, what ends up happening is nobody gets helped. Nobody gets helped, or at least not enough. Rabotai Karim, it's time we take the Torah by the hand and realize it's our obligation to help Am Yisrael do tshuva. Enough with this, listen, I don't want to say something because, maybe they'll figure it out on their own. Enough with this, listen, he's driving on Shabbat, but at least he's driving to Beit Knesset type of attitudes. Don't make decisions for other people of what they can and they can't handle. You can at least tell them what the truth is, or give them a movie, or send them a lecture that tells them what the truth is, and try to do it just as often as you would if you were marketing a multi-million-dollar commission product. If you're going to market a product, you're going to market a piece of real estate or a piece of product that you know that if you sell this product, you're going to make millions of dollars, surely you're going to market it to everybody. You're going to market it to people that have money and don't have money, because maybe the guy that doesn't have any money knows somebody with money. You're going to market it to everybody on your phone book. You're going to market it to everybody that's on your phone book, their phone book. You're going to do everything you possibly can to market this thing. And it's time we all do that with Torah. We have to do that with Torah. It's not enough to just sit there and worry about our own tuchas. We all have to start worrying about Am Yisrael. Because right now, the disasters are simply growing. Disasters are growing. It started with households. Then it became an international nightmare. Now it started to become in the process of mitzvot and Miron and the other place. And now you have entire buildings. Literally, an anomaly. An anomaly. When was the last time you heard in America that a building has simply collapsed, aside from the September 11th? Buildings don't simply collapse here. Maybe in India, maybe in other places, third world countries. Just doesn't happen. Especially not in a high-end neighborhood. This wasn't like somewhere in the projects over there, and perhaps half the houses are already demolished when they got them, drug houses. No, this was upper-end neighborhood. Building just collapses. Okay, maybe a balcony fell. Maybe a floor fell. Maybe there was a fire in a couple of apartments. That we all heard of. An entire building collapses and no one understands this as a divine decree? No one understands the divine decree? No one gets it? No, maybe it's maybe there was some flaw. Maybe somebody didn't do this. Are you spiritually stupid? You may be a genius and everything else, but in actual spirituality and understanding of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's hand, people are spiritually stupid. They're not getting it. Buildings don't collapse. And it's time for us to take this rebuke personal. Personal, Rabotai. Different communities have had all types of things happen to them. Every other day there's a new campaign of some other disaster happening to somebody. Someone is sick, someone is poor, someone is this, someone is that. But right now we have literally a community. A community was erased. Does anybody understand the ramifications of this? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not kidding. He's simply not kidding. All of these soft messages of, it's so nice that I saw that everybody's helping each other now. What helping each other? What helping each other? You have 150 people gone. 150 futures are gone. 150 kids have no mother or father. This is not the time for soft. This is the time to blow the horns. Blow the horns. Wake up. If we don't do tshuva, it's going to get worse. People have to understand, if these heretics that continue spewing venom are not shut down, this will get worse. Because it's no longer a physical war. We're not dealing with Nazi Germany. We're not dealing with Achashverosh. We're dealing with a spiritual war here. And if we do not wake up, Rabotai Karim, we are going to be in serious trouble. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is simply not joking around. Anyone that thinks otherwise is lying to themselves and is going to wait until it's too late, until it comes to your backyard, chas v'shalom. I can tell you a lot of other things I know about this situation. But I'm going to choose not to, simply because, number one, we have a shiur, and number two, because I think you got the message, it's enough. Perhaps in the future I'll tell you more. But there are certain things that need not to be said. The Chazon Ish talks about this subject. It's not just a happenstance that we're talking about it. Chazon Ish talks about it. Chazon Ish, in chapter 3, section number 18, has been telling us how much we need to learn halacha, and it's not enough to learn MUSSAR. How much we need to learn MUSSAR, and it's not enough to learn halacha. The two need to go together. MUSSAR without halacha, learning character development without learning how to apply it, will lead to evil. Halacha without MUSSAR, learning the laws without character development, will lead to evil. You have many times communities, households that have the same ideology, where the family knows halacha, but they don't know how to behave. You see, the rabbi, first one, his family, his first one, everybody's the first one at the Beit Knesset. But as soon as the prayer starts, everybody runs around, and it becomes like a kindergarten. Who needs such a Beit Knesset? Okay, so he knows the halacha that you need to be the first one in the Beit Knesset. Great. But you need to behave in the Beit Knesset also. It's not a playground. Sometimes, on the other hand, you can have people say, no, I'm a very ethical person. I know how to behave. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to kill anybody. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. But they drive on Shabbat. Why? Because they figure, listen, I want to go to Beit Knesset. Yeah, but you're not drive on Shabbat. Yeah, but listen, it's pikuach nefesh for me. I need to go to Beit Knesset, be on Shabbat, and to see my friends. So they have a misunderstanding of how to apply this or the other. Rabotai, this is what happened in last week's parasha. In Parashat Balak, we saw that Bilam was simply following his own ideas, not the halacha. Hashem originally told him, don't go. But when he didn't listen to the message, Hashem allowed him to go under the conditions that simply he's only going to be allowed to say what Hashem decides to say. In essence, he took away his free choice, if you will. He wasn't able to curse Am Yisrael. But the halacha he wasn't able to follow. He then gave the idea to Balak to send all of his zonot, all of his women that were acting like prostitutes, to go entice Am Yisrael to violate the Torah. Violate the Torah, and they did. But the climatic event of the parasha comes towards the end, when Zimri, the leader of the Shimon tribe, which the Gemara says was hundreds of years old, because he was alive at the time of Yaakov Avinu, meaning that at the very minimum, he was at least a couple of 100 years old, because we were in Egypt for 210 years. He was one of the grandchildren of Yaakov Avinu. He saw Yaakov Avinu. He lived with Yaakov Avinu. He came with Yaakov Avinu to Mitzrayim. We see somebody that saw the face of Yaakov Avinu. Someone that was the leader of the Shimon tribe. Act like a gangster. Where he didn't like that Moshe was paskening halacha without consulting with him, the Gemara says. Because he was the leader. Yeah, but Moshe Rabbeinu is the Gdol Hador. Still, Moshe has to pay me respect. On him it is written in Mishnah and Avot that the gava, the arrogance, pride, will remove a person from the world. And because he got offended, like so many people get offended by stupid things, he decided to go and mock the entire Torah in the face of Moshe Rabbeinu by bringing one of these zonot that came in front of Moshe Rabbeinu and all of the chachamim, hugging her in front of him, say, hey, Moshe, just like your wife, right? Tzipora, didn't you, what? You converted her, right? I'll convert this one also later, after I take care of business. Moshe Rabbeinu was so shocked to see one of the elders, Rabotai, one of the Gdolim, someone that's old enough to be his great-great-grandfather, someone that saw the face of Yaakov Avinu. When Yosef HaTzadik saw the face of his father, he stopped sinning with one of the foremost beautiful women in the world. The face of Yaakov Avinu had such an impact. This is a person that saw the face of Yaakov Avinu, acts like a gangster. In front of Moshe Rabbeinu, in front of everyone, hugs the girl, says, I'm going to take care of business now. Why? Not that he had some lustrous desire to this idiot, this woman. No! Go back and get back at Moshe Rabbeinu for disrespecting me. That's what happens, Rabotai. When a person doesn't know how to implement halacha, there's a time and a place for everything. There's a time and a place for everything. If a person doesn't know how to do it, it will lead to evil. This is why the Chazon Ish has spent more time on this specific issue than perhaps anything else, trying to bring the point home to us, to explain to us that we need to take the Torah by the hand and start taking it seriously. If we don't, evil will come. We don't have to bring it. Last week, the Chazon Ish told us that it's necessary to elaborate on this, on the importance of studying halacha, because of the decreased amount of students that are in our generation, and he's talking about his generation a few decades ago, because there are few survivors who truly know halacha, truly dedicate their lives to it, and to prevent those remnant from falling away is certainly an act of love. Act of love for who? For them? No, act of love for Hashem. Everybody likes to say, no, I love Hashem, I love Hashem. You love Hashem, you have to sponsor Torah. But not just any Torah. You have to sponsor the teachers of Torah. Teachers of Torah that teach people what to do and what not to do. Teachers of Torah, teachers of Talmidei Chachamim that will be Dayanim. Why? Because this is what we need. This is the highest expression of love for Hashem. But he said, unfortunately, what we have in the world today is not so many of those people that really dedicate their life to Torah, but rather people to dedicate their life to learning Torah, but not for the sake of heaven, not with the Torah being the priority, but rather their own ideas. And he says the following: that there's a great neglect within the Bet Midrash which causes students to be lax about studying halacha thoroughly. Instead, the time is wasted on fabricated ideas and notions, which we call in Hebrew pilpulim. They toil over what could be, what should be, what could have been, things that are not necessarily so practical in day-to-day life. On innovations and chidushim that have nothing to do with what Moshe Rabbeinu heard in Mount Sinai. And even if at times they talk about the fear of heaven, or the perfecting of one's character traits, or some type of external examination, this kind of study does not fulfill the desired goal of man on this earth, as long as it's not accompanied by practical knowledge of the laws of the Torah as explained above. In the Sefer Ach Tov L'Yisrael, by our own dear Rav Ephraim, in the first volume, came out some 15 years ago or so. In Siman Yud Aleph, Siman Yud Aleph, in Daf Kuf, he brings many Chachamim throughout the ages, whether it's the Khatam Sofer or Rav Ovadia, both Ashkenazim, Sfaradim, Rishonim, Achronim, the Maharsha, talking about this particular subject, saying how many people like to do pilpulim, like to toil and try to figure out if they can get a little bit more juice from the words, another innovation, another new insight that's unique to them, new idea, new philosophical viewpoint, even though it's nothing that's practical and perhaps not even useful. And here he says, Chachamim have said it many times that these types of pilpulim are of no use and cannot be compared to the pilpulim that were done by our sages in the Gemara. Why can they not be compared? Because you see, sometimes this is done in the Gemara itself by our sages. Why can the pilpulim of them that's the reason why we got the Gemara and the bottom line answers for everything. Why can't that be compared to some young 15, 18, 20-year-old guy that wants to toil over this? Chachamim say it's because they were doing it for the sake of heaven, to find the truth. You are doing it so you have a chidush. Very different. They were doing it in order to know the will of Hashem. You are doing it because you want to have your own idea. You're trying to find it. Where you can find your idea somewhere. You have an idea already. You're looking for a place for it. You're looking for a home. You're looking for some backing and a smakta. And he writes here, "Mipilpul nehefach lebilbul." He says that this pilpul, this toiling, has turned into bilbul, confusion. And those that learn it are like the shame of the nation, not the great. And it does not lead to anything of use. And sometimes you'll see that people will not only do it, but they'll toil in it to the extent of making their whole life based on these types of teachings, calling it rationalism, calling it a new form of Judaism. They believe that other Chachamim had the same thing. They say the Rambam was a rationalist. They say other Chachamim, that they saw a few words in their book similar to a few words that they wrote. They say, oh, he thinks like me. Obviously, there's nothing further from the truth. But sometimes you'll see Reshaim like Slifkin or Meza or Prager or the other one, Manis, build on this an entire foundation of heresy and a huge following. And they'll scream it or whisper it or speak it in their own charismatic ways, with passion, with conviction, to such an extent that the followers buy into it, saying this is the truth. Just like Am Yisrael, lehavdil, the time where Hashem split the ocean into 12, each one of us, even the babies inside their mommy's belly, pointed up and said, Zeh li ve'anveu. This is God and I will honor Him. I will glorify Him. These people watching these lectures, these videos, or attending, or whatever it is, will point to a Meza, or a Menace, or a Prager, and say, that's the truth. That's the truth, no fight for it. So much so they will go against the truth themselves and join their armies against the truth. Calling the Gdolei Ador, the biggest rabbis of the generation, whether it be a Rabbi Ovadia or a Rabbi Akiva, a nothing in comparison to their leader, even if their leader is a Mechalel Shabbat. And on such people, it is said, Lefi hacharifut, kacha hashibush. The more zealous they are, the more sharp they are with their foolishness, with their new philosophy, the more you understand how enamored they are, how deep they are in their own mistake. Now these mistakes are not so easy to fix. And this is not my words, but the Chazon Ish, where he says that these people that are spending their time toiling and trying to figure out something that's not necessary, they're not looking for the practical knowledge of what the Torah actually said, which means what is the actual halacha. They decide No, this may be the halacha in Shulchan Aruch, but I want to accept somebody else. Yeah, but Klal Yisrael accepted the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, but there's other poskim. Sure, there's other poskim. They're great poskim. But Am Yisrael goes by the Shulchan Aruch. That's what we go by. Yeah, but you don't have to. What do you mean you don't have to? That's the rule itself. Yeah, but I don't want to. But this is what Judaism is. Yeah, but you could do you and I could do me. And they'll have all types of arguments of how they could just listen to whatever they want as long as they listen to somebody. In so many words, they create a new religion. And sometimes they'll quote the Rambam and say, yeah, Rambam is right here. And literally, sometimes within the same sentence, they'll make fun of the same Rambam. They'll make fun of the Rambam. And another time, they'll quote the Shulchan Aruch. But a few minutes later, they'll say, no, you don't have to listen to the Shulchan Aruch. You don't have to listen to him. He's just a rabbi. And there's no real smicha anymore because of this and that. You don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. And they confuse. The average person doesn't understand. What does that mean? So what? You're telling me that the Baal Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, and the Rama, that's the Shulchan Aruch today. What? You don't really have to listen to them? Because they're not at the time of the Tanaim. They're not at the time of the Naviim. They're not at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. You don't have to listen to them. You can just interpret the Torah according to your own likings. So as long as you have somebody said something, you can listen to him. Which means that as long as I listen to you, and you said something, that could be it. Average person will fall for it. Will fall for it. And this is why, Rabotai, the disaster that's happening from these poisonous speakers is something we bring up on a regular basis. From my own perspective, of experience, of seeing how literally tens of thousands of people that I'm in touch with on a regular basis, how they're impacted by the speeches of these people or the likes, whether before me or during, how people are misguided. There is no greater damage than false speakers. Whether those false speakers are coming from the Christian missionary world or unfortunately from the Jewish world. Because they cause the most amount of confusion. And unfortunately, people don't know enough to know what's right and wrong. And sometimes you see generally decent people fall prey to these people. Now, to help the evil leaders is virtually impossible. And that's what the Chazon Ish is saying. Where he says, those whose wisdom consists of moral discourses and external reflections relating to halacha believe mistakenly that this is man's obligation in this world. And they think that that is the way that the sages of the Mishnah and the Gemara behaved, with halacha taking a secondary place. Here, the Chazon Ish, especially if you read the Hebrew version of it, where he talks about these types of speakers, or rabbis, whoever they are, that make their own intellect the priority, and they start having external reflections such as their own ideas, their own philosophies, their own rationale. Here, rationalism. All of these rationalists that think that they've reinvented the wheel in our generation, there's nothing new. It existed back then, it existed before them. These rationalistic-minded people that look at halacha in such a way that it's secondary, that they think that they're in a doing the same thing that the sages did in their days. They're poskening the same way from their own mind. They're deciding their own way from their own mind. Just like Rav Ashi, just like Rabbi Yosef Karo, just like Rabbi Akiva, just like Abaye, just like all the sages. in the last couple of thousand years. What's the difference? It is indeed hard to uproot such a firmly entrenched and long-lasting misconception. But one cannot ignore the fact that this is a total falsehood, Chazon says. Here he's clearly telling us that the people, these so-called rationalists, these so-called philosophers, these apikosim, these shmuli botechs of the world, these manises of the world, and also to uproot them from what they've delved into their whole lives, or at least for an extended amount of time, to the point where they've made it their life, is very, very difficult. Very difficult because they've literally made this their MO. But he continues to say that you cannot ignore the fact that this is complete falsehood. Why do I need to know it's falsehood if I can't help them? Okay, so what they teach is falsehood. But you said that to uproot it is very difficult, in so many words, telling me that almost impossible. Because it's so firmly entrenched. So why do I need to know that it's falsehood then? Number one, so you don't fall into it yourself. Don't do anyone any favors by watching their lectures just to see if they say something else that's heretical. Why? They're clever enough to eventually trap you. I see different people send me from time to time, oh, listen, did you hear what such and such said? And I asked them, did you finish the entire Shas? Bavli, Yerushalmi, Shulchan Aruch, Chumash? Did you finish everything yet? No. So how do you have so much time that you have to go spend watching a lecture by an apikos? Needless to say, a 3-hour podcast or a 30-minute schmooze. How do you have time to spend listening to apikosim? You haven't learned the things that you need to know. And you go out there and you throw your body, throw your neshama and say, no, I'm going to go listen just to see maybe he says something else heretical so I can tell somebody. Don't do anybody any favors. You're putting yourself in danger. So first and foremost, you have to know their damage is so grave, it's almost impossible to get them out of it. Almost impossible to get them out of it. In some cases, it is impossible. But you have to know that it's falsehood, the Chazon says. To number one, protect yourself. And number two, protect others. Protect others from this falsehood. From this so-called rationalism, independent-minded type of behavior where people that do not even know how to read the Aleph Bet are simply deciding they're going to decide how the Torah is supposed to function. They're going to decide what Judaism really is. They're going to decide what the bottom line halacha is of how you're going to pray and how you're going to fast and how you're going to do this and how you're going to do that. They've never finished the Chumash, needless to say, the Gemara or anything of significance. But they're going to decide for themselves how Judaism is supposed to be. Why? Their hero that they watched, he told them, don't be so religious. Don't be so religious. He said, oh, I like this guy. He says, don't be so religious. I like not being so religious. And unfortunately, Abotai, a person that means well can fall prey to these people. Now, Chazon Ish continues and says something that's, from my perspective, right on the money for our situation today. He says, no doubt, if we hear one of those discoursers praising a certain person, saying that he is a great man, it must mean that he's a good speaker and successful at expressing and chanting and attractive ideas. Sometimes you'll hear these people say, oh yeah, this guy, yeah, he's a great man. Nobody's better than him. You know how much he's helped society, he did this, he did that. Yeah, he's a great man. Chazon Ish says, don't really jump on that guy's YouTube channel and say, oh yeah, he's a great man, I'm going to go listen to him. Because their definition of great man and the Torah's perspective of what great man is are two different things. Great man to the rationalist, philosopher, secular-minded, independent-minded, gavatanic, prideful person, their perspective or definition of great man is someone that is good speaker, has good oratory skills, enough to express an idea and get the audience to buy into it. Meaning that they'll think that Obama, great person, great man. Donald Trump, great person. Virtually every politician, great person, great person. Yeah, but he's a lefty, liberal, anti-Torah. Yeah, but he's a great person though. He did a lot of great things. What great things? He's voted against the Torah on a regular basis. Yeah, but he did other great things. Why are you only looking at the bad stuff? They'll say, Hitler is a great person. Hitler, for all intents and purposes, perhaps the best recorded speaker in the last 100 years. The oratory skills that he had and the charisma that he had was good enough that you didn't have to know what he's saying just to buy into it. These types of rational-minded people will call such a person a great person. Rabotai, I have a Jewish Nazi that I'm trying to help do tshuva right now. I have a former Nazi that I helped do tshuva in the past. I think more than one. Used to be a Nazi, but Hashem, he's not a Nazi anymore and he's a good person now. But right now, literally in the last, week, a Jewish Nazi contacted me. Because he saw one of my videos on the Nazi websites. So Baruch Hashem, now I'm trying to help him get out of his warped mindset. And BeEzrat Hashem will succeed. He thought and thinks Hitler was a great person. Good oratory skills. Could express his idea and make the audience follow it. You may think this is an extreme example. It's not extreme at all. Many people thought that the enemies of the Torah are great people and still do. This is why people like Ephraim Goldberg, despite the fact that it is well known to all of Klal Yisrael that Naftali Bennett is a apikoros, enemy of the Torah, who has simply given his back to the Torah, going against his own supporters by partnering with the lefty liberals. Instead of saying, wow, it's too bad we had him on our show, what do they do? Wow, good for us that we had him on our show. Why? He's a great person. He's got good oratory skills. He can express his ideas, even if his ideas will be one to one person and something else to a different person and contradict each other. Their definition of a great person is like the Christian's definition of Messiah. Where to the Jews, Messiah means a human being that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to send to the world. This human being will be born from a woman, have a relatively normal life, but one day will discover that he's Messiah. Hashem will send the prophet Eliyahu Navi to put the oil on him and make a Messiah which will give him superhuman powers. And this is not a midrash or an agada or something of a fairy tale, but it's in the verses in the Torah where it says, "Beruach sfatav yamit rasha," that with his words he'll be able to kill people. And this is not figuratively speaking, this is literally speaking. Because it also says he'll be able to smell the sins of people and the yirat shamayim of people. The key, Rabotai, is to understand that our Messiah is a human being that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give him power to lead the people, like a king, or a king, but more powerful than any king before him. The Christian's definition of Messiah is God. That's why I always tell people, it doesn't matter if they are Protestant Christians, or they're Lutheran, or they're this one, or that one. Doesn't make a difference. Anyone that believes in the New Testament is part of idolatry. Simple. Why? The New Testament is a work of idol worship, splitting God into three, in some cases even more, and simply making God into a human being, humanizing God. So no, they only believe in Jesus as the Messiah. Yes, the Messiah to them, the word Messiah to them means God. It doesn't mean like us a Messiah. Doesn't mean the same thing. So here we see that it's important to know not just the words that people use, but what they mean to them. To these people, Messiah means something very different. To these other people, great man also means something different. Now some people will say, yeah, especially these rationalists, they're going to say, yeah, but didn't the Rambam, that's usually the hero that they choose to have and misinterpret his Torah, didn't the Rambam say that Christianity was a great thing, great addition to the world? No, he didn't. But the average person that you tell this to will believe you. Will say, yeah, you know what? Yeah, he did say that. He did say, even though you don't know. Yeah, he did say, because no one wants to admit they're clueless. Yeah, the Rambam said it. So I guess Christianity is good. That explains why there's so many rabbis taking a few dollars from the Christian missionaries. That explains why there's so many Jewish organizations that are united with the Christians. That explains it. Rationalizing. But what did the Rambam really say? Nothing of that sort. Let's see what he says. In the Mishneh Torah, he says there's no greater stumbling block in Ilchot Melachim, no greater stumbling block than Christianity. That's what he says there. I'll give you something else, because I've said this before. Always have to give you guys new product. In one of the most famous letters ever written, needless to say, letter by the Rambam, Igeret Yemen, the letter to Yemen, he writes the following. Because of the Torah, all of the kings of the earth stirred up hatred and jealousy against us. Their real intention is to make war against Hashem, but no one can oppose the Almighty. Ever since the time of the giving of the Torah, every non-Jewish king, no matter how he rose to power, has made it his first objective to destroy the Torah. Amalek, Sisera, Sancheriv, Nebuchadnezzar, Titus, Hadrian, and many others like them tried to overturn our religion by force, by violence, and by the sword. The nations who want to annihilate us through violence are one of two groups whose aim is to defeat the divine will. The second group consists of the brightest and most educated among the nations, such as the Syrians, the Persians, and the Greeks. They also attempted to tear down our religion and wipe out our Torah, but they do it by means of argument. They offer questions they dream up, similar to the philosophers we've been talking about. They try to demolish the Torah and to erase its last trace with their writings. The tyrants try to do the same with their wars. Neither the one nor the other will succeed. As Hashem proclaimed through the prophet Isaiah, that he will destroy the armaments of any despot or oppressor who intends to destroy our Torah and abolish our religion by weapons of war. In the same way, whenever a disputant will argue to undermine our religion, he will lose the debate. Here the Rambam is bringing a chidush. He says that no major debate that will impact the nation of Israel will ever be lost. You have small, meaningless debates that somebody has in their own little community that's really not going to impact anybody, where the Jew looks like a fool and he shouldn't have gone onto a stage of a debate. But any debate that Am Yisrael had one of its serious representatives on stage in a debate will never be lost. And the Rambam says this is a chidush. This is a quote in the Torah, in our Tanakh. What quote? What verse? His theory will be exploded and refuted. This thought is expressed in the following verse. Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17. No weapon formed against you will succeed, and every tongue that contends with you at law you will defeat. Such is the lot of the servants of Hashem. Such is their triumph through me, declares Hashem. Here HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises us that no religious debate for the nation will ever be lost. Hence the reason why you see that the major debates, whether it's the ones mentioned in the Sefer of the Kuzari or the Ramban in Barcelona, the great debate by Rav Mizrahi, Shichyeh, or Rabbi Tovia Singer, Shichyeh, these great debates that had a major impact, you saw, Baruch Hashem, we won hands down. And this is a promise in the Torah. Now, then he continues, after talking about these two different types of enemies of Am Yisrael, both one a physical, one a spiritual enemy, where one is trying to kill us and our Torah with their weapons of spears and so on, and the other one with their oratory skills, their arguments, their heretical and philosophical teachings. After that, the Rambam says, a new sect arose which made our lives miserable by combining the approaches of the two groups, brute force and persecution. It believed that this method would be more effective in wiping out the last vestige of the Jewish nation, and it therefore conceived a plan to claim divine revelation and establish a new religion. Contrary to our God-given Torah, it declared publicly that both revelations were given by God. It meant to raise doubts and sow confusion. The new religion claimed to believe in the same God, but to be the recipient of a new set of commandments. Thereby it hoped to destroy our Torah. Here he's talking about the two biggest religions in the world, Christianity and Islam, where they both use the force, killing, and so on, and also their oratory skills to try to deceive Am Yisrael. And unfortunately, from there, different rotten fruits grew, which are the apikosim of today in the Jewish world, that will desecrate the Shabbat openly but call themselves a Jewish advocate, will completely go against the sages but call themselves someone that cares about Jews and the Torah. So here we'll go into what does the Rambam think about these two religions. Because according to the rationalist, the Rambam says that Islam and Christianity were great additions to the world. This is a letter he wrote. I didn't write this letter. You could get this letter anywhere. He says the following. The first one, he's talking about these new sect that's combining brute force and persuasion. So the first one who devised this plan was Yeshu the Nazarene, Jesus. May his bones be crushed. Well, hold on a second. Yeshu the Nazarene, may his bones be crushed. Say amen. I thought you liked him. I thought it was a great addition. Why would you want his bones to be crushed while he's in the grave if he's such a great addition to the world? He was a Jew because his mother was Jewish, although his father was a Gentile. Our law states that a child born of a Jewish mother and a Gentile or a slave is a kosher Jew, but we only call him a mamzer, an illegitimate child, in a matter of speaking, meaning we make fun of him every time you say his name. You either say Yeshu Imach Shemo V'Zichro or Yeshu HaMamzel. Anytime you say something about him, you add a derogatory name. Why? It's a mitzvah to make fun of idolatry. He led people to believe that he was sent by Hashem to explain the bewildering passages of the Torah, and that he was the Messiah, who was predicted by each and every prophet. He interpreted the Torah in a way that would invalidate it completely, do away with all of its mitzvot, and sanction all of its prohibitions. The sages guessed his purpose before his fame spread among the people and condemned him to receive the punishment he deserved. Daniel the prophet predicted his emergence when he spoke of the downfall of a renegade. So here is an answer to all of the people that still think that Yeshu, Jesus, is mentioned by the prophet Daniel. They always like to mention Daniel 9. Well, Daniel did mention Yeshu. There is a source for Yeshu in the prophet Daniel, but it's not Daniel 9. It's Daniel 11, the Rambam says. Daniel 11, verse number 14. The Rambam says, Daniel predicted the emergence of this and the downfall of this renegade and heretic who would arise in Israel. And he spoke of one who would attempt to destroy the Torah and boast of having prophetic powers, of being able to perform miracles, and who would declare himself as Messiah. As it says in Daniel 11:14, the lawless sons of your people will assert themselves to claim prophecy, but they will fail. Here the Rambam says is referring to Yeshua Notzri. Imach Shemo V'Zichro. Long after he lived, the descendants of Esav created a religion and traced its origins to him. So, just like we all know, historically speaking, all of the people that wrote the Bible never even saw Yeshu, Imach Shemo. But nonetheless, the Rambam, who's much closer to that time, obviously knows a lot more about that than we do. After him, the Meshuggah, the madman. Who's the Meshuggah, the madman? Who is that? Muhammad. After that, the Meshuggah arose. The madman arose. He followed in his forerunner's footsteps and attempted to convert us. He had added ambition of pursuing political power, seeking to subjugate the people under his rule, and he originated his well-known religion of Islam. These men had one purpose: to place their false religions on the same level with our divine faith. Only a child who knows nothing about either religion would equate our God-given faith to man-made theories. Our religion is as different from other religions as a living, thinking human being differs from a wooden, metal, or stone statue that looks like a man. On the surface, and in its shape, form, and appearance, the statue looks exactly like a man. The simple-minded person who knows nothing of divine wisdom or the art of a sculpture thinks that it's made the same way man is made. He doesn't understand the inner workings of both. A knowledgeable person who knows the inner nature of both knows that the internal structure of the statue does not manifest any skillful workmanship at all. The inner parts of man are the true wonders that reveal the wisdom of the Creator. The nerves extending into muscles which allow man to move his limbs at will. The attachment of ligaments, how they cling to bone, and the manner in which they grow. The connection of bones and joints, blood vessels that pulsate, and those that do not, and how they branch out. The placement of man's organs overlapping one another. How every part of the body has its proper composition, form, and place. Similarly, a person unfamiliar with the Holy Scripture and its secret meanings the Torah Asod, which is the part that the rationalists fight the most, as a side note. A person who is unfamiliar with Torah Asod, the secret meaning of a Torah, not just the Pshat, and the commandments' deeper significance, may think that our religion has something in common with or is comparable to the spurious man-made faith. He is misled. Both in Judaism and in the false religion, there are things that you may not do and things that you must do. Both in Judaism and in the false religion, there are various forms of worship. The Torah provides many positive and negative commandments, punishments and reward, and so does the fraudulent man-made religion. But if he knew the deeper meaning of the commandments, he would realize that the God-given Torah is true. It is the essence of divine wisdom. Every commandment and prohibition moves man closer to perfection and removes the barriers that prevent him from attaining excellence. Through these commandments, both the broad masses and the individual will be able to reach moral and intellectual refinement, each according to his ability and perception. Through the mitzvot, the community of God becomes elevated, reaching a twofold perfection. By the first perfection, I mean living in this world under the most pleasant and gratifying conditions. The second perfection is the attainment of intellectual heights for each person according to his ability. The other religions that resemble our religion really have no deeper meaning. They're only stories and imaginary tales in which the founder is trying to glorify himself, stating that he is great and so-and-so. As so-and-so. The sages saw through this deception. They saw the entire religion as a farce and as a joke, just as people laugh at a monkey who apes the action of men. This was the opinion of the Rambam about Christianity, about Islam, about all of these man-made religions. For anyone to state otherwise simply either is ignorant or a liar. When these types of false leaders from different religions or ones that present themselves as if they're in the same religion as ours say that they're talking about great men, know, the Chazon Ish says, know that their definition of greatness is different than ours. And now he brings us a couple of examples. He says that their definition of greatness is simply saying that someone is a successful speaker, he expresses his own ideas in an enchanting way, an attractive way, but yet, Agmara in Masechet Bava Kama, page 40, Daf Aleph, 40a, has a story. Rava spoke of praise to Rav Nachman regarding another Chacham named Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. And Rava said to Rav Nachman that Rav Acha Bar Yaakov was a great person. So Rav Nachman said to Rava, he's such a great person, next time he comes to you, bring him to me. Meaning, I want to see what you consider great. I want to see how great this person really is. Surely, he's not saying he's not religious, not saying he's a heretic, no. And just so you know, the Gemara says in Masechet Arachim that to give too much compliments about a person could be Lashon Hara. Could be Lashon Hara. Can't give too many compliments about somebody. Also can't make fun of them for, let's say. So if you're going to say someone's a great person, in essence you're saying this fits. It's not too much, you're not embellishing too much. Because if it's too much, it could be Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, other people can make fun of him, perhaps it doesn't fit, and so on and so forth. So, Rav Nachman says, I want to meet this Rav Acha Bar Yaakov, that you call a great person. Send him to me next time he comes to you. So that's what happens. So Rav Acha comes to Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, ask me something. Ask me something. So, Rav Acha Bar Yaakov starts asking him questions. What questions? What do you do for a living? Are you married? Do you have any kids? Where do you live? Did you hear the news? That kind of questions? No. What questions is he asking? He says, ask me questions. Ask me. Whatever you want to ask. Ask. Nice to meet you. No. He says, if an ox belonging to two partners killed the person, how shall the partners pay the kofel? Kofel is in essence the price that you have to pay in such a case where your goods, your property, killed somebody, and there's a tikkun that has to take place. There's a price that you have to pay in order to rectify the sin. So now, how can you pay this kofel? How can you pay this kofel? Or the English translation to it is atonement. Atonement. How do you pay this kofel? If you have partners. Because the Torah says you have to pay a full kofel. So if one of the people out of the partners pays the kofel, then one person gets an atonement, the second guy doesn't get an atonement. He's not fulfilling the mitzvah. On the other hand, if both are paying 50-50, the Torah says you have to pay full atonement. So neither one of them is fulfilling the Torah. So Rav Nachman saw this serious question. Said, ask me another question. Ask me another question. And he says, if somebody is obligated to, made an erech vow. An erech vow is if somebody vowed to donate the amount of money that he's worth, but not worth like his net worth and what Forbes has him listed on the newspaper of how much he's worth, but his worth according to the Torah. There's a value of 20 shekels for a man, 10 shekels for a woman, and all of the feminists hate this, but nonetheless this is Torah. So somebody vowed that he's going to donate as much as the Torah values it. So in this particular case, if he vowed to do this, now it says that since the erech vow is not a atonement, it's not an atonement, so we fear that the person that made the vow is not going to pay on time. But we don't take a collateral from him. We don't take a security from him to obligate him to make the payment, like we do with the chatat offerings and the other sham offerings, because those offerings are necessary for atonement. So, meaning that, the chatat offerings and the sham offerings, because they do offer atonement, we don't take a security deposit on them, because we know that people need this atonement. They need to do the tikkun. It's part of their tshuva. So we know they're going to do it. So we're not afraid if they're going to pay or not. Once they know they have to bring a korban, we don't tell them, listen, put a down payment, so we know that you're going to come back on Tuesday and bring in the korban. We don't do that. So here with the erech vow, says that it doesn't have a atonement like these offerings do, but it's getting the treatment like the offerings do, meaning we're not taking a security deposit. So how do we explain this? And he goes into more details. The point, now we know why he was called a great man. Chasonish says, when Rava said to Rav Nachman about Rav Acha bar Yaakov that he was a great man, it would have been appropriate for Rav Nachman to ask Rav Acha questions in a midrash or agadah when he told him, ask me whatever you want. He could have asked him anything. He could have asked him, where do you live? He could have asked him, what happened in last week's parasha when Zimri was making a joke of Moshe Rabbeinu. Could have asked him questions, personal questions. Could have asked him questions about midrash, about stories in the Torah. Could have asked him anything. But when Rav Acha was brought to him, Rav Nachman questioned him in the matters of halacha. From this we learn that the greatness of a great man lies in the study of halacha. It says we learn everything from the Torah. Everything. But not just the written Torah. Because the written Torah, we simply do not know how to understand every detail from the written Torah on our own. Just look at some of the things we learned today. The new Chidushim by the Rambam, of how these verses that perhaps some of us have read 50 times, in the book of Isaiah, or the book of Daniel, and we never knew that this is what it's talking about. We never knew it's talking about the BEIT. We never knew it's talking about Yoshke, and saying that he's going to come and he's going to be an apikolos and a heretic and so on. We never knew all this stuff. We never knew the details like the Chachamim do. So you could read the written Torah, you could read the Tanakh 500 million times. You're not going to know. Why? Because you're not them. You're not the Chachamim. You may get some things, but the reality is, our Torah is built in such a fashion that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes us depend on our Chachamim. Depend on our Chachamim. And contrary to what some will lead people, mislead people to believe about the works of the Chachamim, that it's their own thoughts, it's their own rationale, it's their own chidushim. Everything that they say has a source from someone before them. All the way to the beginning. All the way to the beginning. No one comes out of stuff out of nowhere. Now we saw the Rambam wrote commentary on a pasuk. He gave us commentary of what's to be, but then he says, I have a pasuk, I have a verse in the Torah, this is what it says. That's what it says. And he says, we learned this from the Chachamim before us. Now many people will say, yeah, but what about the Zohar? In the Zohar he brought a lot of new ideas that are not mentioned elsewhere. First of all, they are mentioned elsewhere. Second of all, before you comment on the Zohar, you should read the whole Zohar. Then you can comment on it. And all of the people that mock the Zohar or go against the Zohar have never read the Zohar. Why? If they did, at the very least, they would know that many of the ideas that are mentioned in the Zohar Kadosh are mentioned elsewhere, in the Gemara, in the other Sifrei Chachamim, but also that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself didn't come up with these ideas out of thin air. In the Zohar itself, he quotes over 60 Kabbalistic works that were written before him that he's getting the ideas from. Things that were available from the time of Avraham Avinu, from Shem, from the time of the previous generations where the Torah was virtually oral, but some Chachamim wrote certain things for themselves. And there were over 60 Kabbalistic works that preceded the Zohar. But your average person will say, oh, I thought that's the Kabbalah is the Zohar. No, Habibi. Kabbalah preceded the Zohar. But that just shows your ignorance. So we see here, Rabotai, that Chachamim's definition of greatness is not based on how great their oratory skills are, how popular they are. No. How much do they know about halacha? Why halacha more than anything else? When you know halacha the way it's supposed to be known, that means that you have toiled and toiled and toiled in order to find the truth. Not like one of these people just listen, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and you can just know yes, no's about 500 things. Like in high school or junior high school, you just remember everything you need to do for the test, but 15 minutes after the test, they ask you a question about the subject you just took a test on and got 100 on. You don't remember anything. It all got deleted. You only remembered it like a Scantron paper. You remember it for the test, 15 minutes after the test, don't ask me ever again. All of us are like that. In high school, I took Japanese classes. Ask me a few, I was the best student. I was the student everybody copied from. Ask me a few words in Japanese, I say, whoa, don't talk Chinese to me. Why? For school. If you're going to study Torah like you studied for junior high school, like you studied in order to get a good grade on a test, you're never going to be a chacham. You're never going to be a chacham. But if you toil and toil and toil in order to arrive at the truth and the actual halacha, not only will you arrive at the truth, but you also purify yourself in the process. And you'll understand what the Chachamim mean when they say, Chavacha, great man. One word says so much. He gives another example. He says there's a custom. It was a custom to give Torah scholars precedence in selling their merchandise in the marketplace. And when they tested someone that came to the marketplace, in the Gemara Masechet Bava Batra, page 22a, they asked him some questions on halacha. But they saw he wasn't answering, so they decided that he's not a Torah scholar. Here we see that in the Gemara, it's not only great examples, like the one we just saw, where a Chacham comes and asks questions that even the rabbi has to say, oh, hold on a second, I got to think about this, maybe come back to me in a few weeks. In order for me to arrive at a true answer, come back to me later on. I can't give you an answer. It's not a 1, 2, 3 answer. The question you're asking is Mount Sinai itself. I have to go ask my Rav, I have to ask a few other Chachamim. These are not simple questions to ask. Do we split the kofel? Do we not? These are not simple questions. You are a great man. Your questions show that you have the right questions. Your questions show that you have real wisdom. Not you just asking for the sake of asking to show that you're smart. Like some people ask questions not because they want to know the answer. They just want to know if you know the answer. For those people, we call them Reshaim. But quietly. Reshaim. Why Reshaim? Because you don't want to say it too loud and then discourage them from continuing to learn. But in the meantime, they're Reshaim. Why they're Reshaim? Why are you asking if you already know the answer? Why? You want to show off? You want to show pride? You want to show your muscles? That you know and the person that you asked, needless to say if it's a rabbi, you want to embarrass him that he doesn't know and you know. So what? You think you're going to be better than him? Reshaim. Sometimes people ask questions they know the answer to, but they want to know if you want to know the answers. I want to test you. We've had a few of those, Baruch Hashem. Reshaim. But we stay quiet about it. We don't tell them to their face. Hopefully, they'll learn a little bit more Torah, eventually become human beings. Decent. But in the meantime, they think they're going to heaven. Not so much. Not so much. Sometimes people ask that way. They want to know if you know. They want to know if you know. I want to test you. That's the thing. Sometimes they want to ask a question, even though they already asked a few other people before you. They asked the rabbi a question, but they already got an answer from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other rabbis. Why? Maybe you're going to give them a different answer. Because the first 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 answers wasn't 100%. Those people, Reshaim. Wicked. Reshaim. Why? Because they're looking to use the Torah like Play-Doh. You know Play-Doh? Oh, when I was a kid, we used to play with plastilina. Plastilina is like a little... That's Reshaim. They want to take the Torah, mold it into whatever they want. First 2 rabbis said yes. He doesn't like yes. He's looking for a rabbi to say no. Reshaim. Those people, if we know that they exist, we tell them to their face they're Reshaim. Why? That person has to be stopped immediately. It's much more dangerous than the second guy. The other guy's arrogant, and hopefully that'll change over time. But the other one that's trying to mollify the Torah, horrible. That person can become a Manus Friedman. So it's important to know that some people ask questions that way. They ask questions that way. Here we see that Rabbi Yaakov, he didn't ask questions because he knew the answer. He asked questions because he didn't know the answer. And he wants to know if the Gedol Hador can help him with this answer. But the size of his question showed he's really great. Shows that he did toil in order to arrive a legitimate question, which seems simple because we're reading it. It's not simple at all. Not simple at all. On the other hand, another person that looked like a Chacham. Look, a Chacham, nice, beard, hat, this, that, showed up in the market. And there's an halacha that says if a Chacham comes into the market to sell his goods, everybody shuts their stores until he sells everything. He's a Chacham. We can't have him here just wasting his time. He has to go back to learning Torah. Let him sell everything, buy stuff from him, yalla, he can go home after that. That's that Torah. That's how we do it. But before we get everybody to shut off their stores and put their business on hold until everybody buys your stuff, we have to really verify you're a Chacham. So we have a Chacham that's going to ask you if you're a Chacham. And they asked him some questions, and the guy didn't know. So, you're not a Chacham, everybody keep your stores open. He's not a Chacham, he's just a regular guy. He looks like a Chacham though. Baba. We'll call him Baba. Business. Baba business. Nacham. This, Rabotai, is very common today. Lots of people pretend to be Chachamim, even pretend to be Mekubalim. The Rav Bakshi said in a shiur, I just saw it today, that unfortunately there's a lot of these fake babas today. And he says, yesterday they were driving a tractor or selling some goods. It didn't work out, so they decided, you know what? I'll become a baba. And they start telling me, oh, they give blessings and they're mekubalim. He says some of these people don't even know how to read from a siddur. They don't know how to read from a siddur, but somebody put a nice cool hat on them, a nice outfit from Morocco or some other country, and said, this is Baba Batra. This is Baba this one. Is it? You want a blessing? Hey, drink this water, $1,000. Buy this book that you can't read, $15,000. A lot of these babas giving blessings even though they don't know how to say the blessing themselves. Don't fall for this trap. Don't fall for this trap. He says virtually is almost non-existent, these types of real people. There's virtually non-existent. Virtually non-existent. The real serious mikubalim, first of all, they're not asking for money. And second of all, you won't even know who they are. If you have a local baba somewhere in the middle of nowhere that you live in, just know that's also a business. Maybe you could put it on Amazon, get a discount. So sometimes you have these people that look like rabbis. They even say rabbi things. But when they're asked serious questions, they don't know the answers. But not questions about, listen, who was Moshe Rabbeinu's father? Who had 2 sons, but no daughters? Who this? Who that? Not questions like that. They ask questions about halacha. You know the answer? You're not a chacham. We're not going to shut the store for you. Doesn't mean you're a bad guy. You're just not a guy that we have to change our livelihood for. That's example number 2 the Chazon Ish brings. Example number 3. So further, when people were standing next to Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, Rabbi Eliezer the Great, when he was on his deathbed. This you'll find in the Avot Rabbi Natan, chapter 25, and I also believe it's in the Gemara. They question him in regards to the halacha of purity and impurity of the mikvehs. And Rabbi Eliezer spoke before his death about the punishment for neglecting the study of halacha. Here we see why Rabbi Eliezer was called Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, the Great. Why was he great? Why was he a big guy? Why he was rich? Why he wrote a lot of books? No. His whole life was toiling to figure out what the truth is. What is the halacha? To the point where even on his deathbed, before HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes him from this world, what is his discussion? Halacha. And the ramifications and punishments of not following halacha, especially when it comes to family purity. A woman doesn't go to a mikveh and is still with her husband, 100% she's a murderer. Murderer. Why? It's karet. It's isur karet. A woman that's with her husband or a boyfriend, when she's nida, she is a murderer. Why? It's isur karet. They're not allowed to be together. She's nida. She's nida. All you boys that have girlfriends, every time you touch her, karet. You are killing yourself. You are committing suicide. She is a murderer. Both of you going to Genom. Wife doesn't want to go to mikveh. Murderer. Husband doesn't care if she goes to the mikveh or not. Suicidal. Simple. That's what Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol was talking about moments before he died. Hence the reason why Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, why he was a giant. Talked about halacha. It's a story I heard from my Rav about Rav Mordechai Eliyahu. Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, Alav Shalom, years ago, when he was the Rishon LeZion, there was a horrific event that happened in Israel where an older couple committed suicide. Both the husband and the wife. both killed themselves. The whole country was shaken up. You know, it's not like America where there's a suicide every 2 seconds and millions of people die every year and no one cares. In Israel, if somebody gets into a car accident, the whole country knows, especially in those days. So when an older couple, both of them commit suicide, the whole country was shaken up. The whole country was shaken up. So at some point, Mordechai Eliyahu was on the radio, and they asked him, Kvod Harav, what do you have to say about this older couple that committed suicide? And Mordechai Eliyahu, without skipping a beat, says the following: both the husband and the wife are reshaim gmurim, are completely wicked people and have no share of the world to come. The whole country shook up after this happened. Out of all things in the world, this is what Rav Mordechai Eliyahu, the head rabbi of the country, has to say about this. Two poor people that killed themselves, elderly people killed themselves, that's what you have to say? I mean, Rav Mordechai Eliyahu wasn't necessarily known to be somebody that was telling fire and brimstone every day. I mean, this is a person that loved Am Yisrael, answered phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning just to tell a person what blessing to make on an apple. But when these two people killed themselves, obviously, out of desperation, something bad happened. All you have to say, these two people are completely wicked and have no share of the world to come. So, but we have to understand them. Mordechai Eliyahu says there's nothing to understand about suicide. They're wicked and have no share of the world to come. The whole country shook up after this. And later on, one of the Talmidim, Mordechai Eliyahu, asked him, Kvod Harav, why did you decide to say that on national radio? What you're saying, obviously, it's emet. That's what the Torah says. Torah says suicide, it's a karet, it's death penalty, it's the worst, there's no share of the world to come, can't bury them in a Jewish cemetery, and a lot of bad things. Obviously, it's considered they're murdering themselves. You're right, it's Torah, sure. But why say it on national radio? Mordechai Eliyahu, with his da'at Torah, the mind of the Torah, he says, listen, I know what kind of ramifications are going to come from this. And if what I said, at the very least, will be heard by somebody somewhere in the country that's thinking about suicide, and that person, after they hear what I said, decides not to do it, it's worth it for me to take all the suffering that I'm going to take for what I said, just to save that one Jew that's not going to want to do it anymore after they hear about the punishment. That is a person that loves Am Yisrael. That is Da'at Torah. You say the truth, even though you're going to get a lot of hatred for it. Not because you want the hatred, but because you know that that truth is going to save somebody. Hence the reason why there's a pasuk in the Torah where it says, Titen emet le Yaakov. Give Yaakov, give Am Yisrael emet, truth. Truth. Yeah, but what about all the noise? Let there be noise. What about you're going to get fired, you're going to get this, you're going to get that? Let there be. It's going to save a Jew. It's going to save a Jew. Here, when a person knows both halacha and MUSSAR, they know exactly how to use. They know exactly how to use the Torah in order to save Am Yisrael from themselves, from their spiritual enemies, the ones within and the ones outside. And here the Chazon Ish completes this section by saying, the great Sanhedrin, the supreme authority according to the Torah, sat in Lishkat HaGazit. And whoever disobeyed their decrees was punished by death. And it's they who decided whether or not to go to war, and whom to appoint as king. What was demanded of them? These great Sanhedrin. They're the ones that are making the decisions for everything. They're deciding to kill or not to kill, who's going to be king, whether to go to war. What was demanded of them? What they need to do? They have to have votes? Did they have to be good speakers? Did they have good behavior? Charitable? What do they have to do? What was demanded of them? A full command of halacha, the laws of permitted and forbidden foods, laws pertaining to monetary issues, and other halachot, as mentioned by the Rambam in Hilchot Sanhedrin, chapter 4, halacha number 8. Here, the Chazon Ish tells us that the greatest sages we ever had were determined based on their knowledge of halacha, not their oratory skills, not if they were clever, not if they were popular or if they were rich, but rather their command of the Torah, command of the truth. This, Rabotai, is critical for a person to know because virtually everybody thinks that they are an ethical person. Virtually everybody thinks that they are a moral person. Even Hitler thought that his behavior was moral. According to his psychotic analysis, he thought that destroying all Jews from the world, as well as anybody else that didn't fit his agenda or the profile that he created in his mind, is doing a service for the world. He thought he's morally just. Many people think that they're morally just. A person can say, listen, I'm morally just, I have good ethics, so when the Chacham steps into the Bet Midrash or the Bet Knesset, I don't stand up for him. Yeah, but you're supposed to stand up when the Chacham comes inside. You're supposed to stand up. No, but I don't want the Chacham to fall for a sin of pride, being prideful. So if I stand up for him, he'll say, he's even standing up for me, so he's going to feel prideful. So, see, I'm already thinking for him. You're violating the Torah, Habibi. You're violating the Torah. Part of Yirat Shamayim is having kavod l'chachamim. And part of kavod l'chachamim is stand up when they come in. But you are too clever for your own good. You're too clever for your own good with your own analysis. With your own analysis. And a person that does not understand what the Torah says, but decides that he's going to interpret it anyway, is going to fall for everything and never really truly understand what he did wrong. There are things that we do in the Torah that we can understand. There are things that we fulfill in the Torah that we don't understand. Needless to say, the Da'at Torah is, we do it anyway. We do it anyway. We don't do it because we understand. We do it because Hashem said so. How do we know what Hashem said? What is the Psak Halacha? What is the Psak Halacha? Now, since there are so many poskim throughout the whole ages, how do we know who to listen to? What is the most accepted opinion? And Baruch Hashem, Chachamim made it easy for us. They gave us a Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch is accepted among all of Am Yisrael. Whether you are Sephardi or Ashkenazi, or whoever you are, Shulchan Aruch is the basic foundation of halacha for all of Am Yisrael. Now keep in mind, for you new people, Shulchan Aruch and Kitzur Shulchan Aruch are not the same thing. They're two completely different books. One was written 500 years ago, one was written 100 years ago. Shulchan Aruch has both the Rabbi Yosef Karo and the Ramah on it, both Sfaradim and Ashkenazim. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is Ashkenazim. It's great work, it's Kodesh Kodashim, but it's not the same thing. A lot of people think, I have Shulchan Aruch in English. If you're Sephardi, you don't, because there is no Shulchan Aruch in English. If you're Ashkenazi, you have the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is sufficient, more than sufficient. Good. But the point is that we have that. Now, of course, why do you have great sages like Rav Ovadia and other great sages, Rabbi Yashiv and so on, and all types of Chachamim that have written other books after the Shulchan Aruch? Because they are going to, number one, apply the laws of the Shulchan Aruch, to the current generation, and based on things that didn't exist back then, whether it be electricity, cars, and so on and so forth, or bring up new insights about things that were not covered by the Shulchan Aruch because they didn't exist. Like kashering a microwave, which is not possible, but nonetheless, it's there's different writings about it. Whether Eilat is really part of Eretz Yisrael, and all types of other things that they'll discuss, countless other questions, obviously, that the Chachamim will bring up. Either applying things to today, or bringing up things that simply did not exist. But the point being is that we have to follow the Chachamim. We have the foundation, we have the new stuff that's, again, not contrary, not contradicting what preceded. Even the Yemenites that got this letter that I read earlier today, or at least part of it, after they read this letter, during that time they were being persecuted by the Muslims, forcing them to convert and so on. So this letter from the Rambam gave them a lot of chizuk. And from that moment on, they blessed the Rambam, and they even included his name in Kaddish, like, to blessing Hashem in the life of Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, meaning that he'll see the blessing too, and so on. And from that moment on, the Yemenites took the Dat Torah of the Rambam and Rambam only. That's who they paskin by. Till today, they go by the Rambam. But Rav Ovadia said that those that made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael have to go by Rabbi Yosef Karo and Shulchan Aruch. Why? Same thing with the Ethiopians. Have to go by Rabbi Yosef Karo and Shulchan Aruch. Why? Because that was, now that you made Aliyah, you're in Eretz Yisrael, that's what's accepted among all of Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael, and that's the way it is. Now, of course, you're going to have some people that still decide not to. But again, it's only wise if you know what you're doing. Most people today don't know what they're doing. And they just decide they're going to pick and choose, and listen to this one, listen to that one, listen to themselves, listen to their friend, listen to that. Like some of these yo-yos that sometimes will contact me and say, listen, what do you think about if I don't believe in this book by Rabbi Eliezer Gadol? Or I don't believe in this book of the Zohar. Or I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that. Like, they just want to fight. They want to debate. It's a waste of time. Why? Number one, because these people are not well-versed enough to even debate. Number two, where's patience for people like this? You don't believe it? Go fly a kite. What do I care? Why do you want from me? They just want to fight. They want to turmoil. We have Chachamim. That is our biggest strength as a people. There are more Chachamim in the Jewish people in our history than all of the other nations combined. There are more writings by our sages than all of the nations combined. There's more wisdom in Judaism than all of the other nations combined. No exaggeration. But unfortunately, if you never delved into the Gemara, you've never delved into the Poskim, you've never delved into the works of our sages, you're simply not going to know it. And if your knowledge is dependent on people that are not knowledgeable, but worse yet, people that are arrogant about things they shouldn't be arrogant on, meaning that they're so arrogant they pretend to be knowledgeable when they start making themselves believe that they're knowledgeable, then you, my friend, are in very, very dear trouble. Very dear trouble. And that's why the Mishnah in Avot, chapter 5, Mishnah number 22, says, Kol mi sheyesh biyado shlosha dvarim alalu, u mitalmidav shel Avraham Avinu, ושלושה דברים אחרים הוא מתלמידיו של בלעם הרשע. עין טובה ורוח נמוכה ונפש שפלה. תלמידיו של אברהם אבינו. עין רעה ורוח גבוהה ונפש רחבה. תלמידיו של בלעם הרשע. Translation. Whoever has the following three traits is among the disciples of our forefather Avraham Avinu. And whoever has three different traits is among the disciples of the wicked Bilam that we just learned about in last week's parasha. Here the Mishnah is telling you, this is a Mishnah. It's telling you, which one are you? Which one are you? You're going to know which one are you. You can decide to change though. Well, you're alive, you can change. Which one are you? Those who have a good eye, a humble spirit, and an undemanding soul are the disciples of our forefather Avraham Avinu. Person that has a good eye, sees other people succeeding, he's happy for them. Doesn't have one of these evil eyes, says, oh, She's happy she's getting married. She's happy that she looks good. He's happy that he's successful. He's happy that he knows more. He's happy. He's happy for other people. You have Ayin Tovah, it's good. Ruach Nemucha. You are a humble person. Not such an arrogant person thinking that who you are, you're better than other people. You know better. I don't know that. And Nefesh Shfela. You have an undemanding soul. Simply, you know your place in the world. You know your place in the world. You know that you have work to do. You know that there's a lot of work to do. And you're not expecting the whole world to revolve just because of you. And then obviously there's a lot more that we can expand on that. But nonetheless, a person that can have restraint when it comes to his demands in the world can lead a very righteous life. Lead a very righteous life. So much so, actually, the Mishnah says in a different place. In a Masechet Avot, chapter 4, Mishnah number 4. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Kol HaMechabed et HaTorah Gufo Mechubad. Rabbi Yossi says, whoever honors the Torah, his body is respected. What do you mean his body? Gufo Mechubad. Now, on one hand, you could translate it as he honors the people. But Gufo means his body. Gufo means his body. So Rabbi Ephraim says, someone that honors the Torah, honors his body, and keeps his body holy, does not waste seed, does not act immoral, does not do things that are forbidden with his body. Because to honor the Torah, it's also to honor your body. Make your body holy. So a person that has a nefesh shfela, an undemanding soul, will know how to honor their body. That's if you want to be one of the disciples of Avraham Avinu. But if you want to be one of the Talmidim of Bilam, which I believe there's one person on Meza's podcast, his name is Bilam. Honestly, I'm not joking. I think there's a person named Bilam there. And who are the people that have a Bilam? Who? Ayin Ra, Ruach Gvoa, V'Nefesh Rechava. Those who have an evil eye. They don't like to see other people succeed. They don't like that other people know more. They don't like that other people have more. They don't like if other people look better. They don't like it. Must be doing something wrong. Must be stealing. She must be cheating. He must be this. He must be that. Ayin Ra, evil eye. Or an arrogant spirit. You're an arrogant person. For sure you're not Talmid of Avraham Avinu, one of the humblest men that ever lived. That he says that he is dust, but not dust and not ashes. You think that you're something, you're somebody, you're important, arrogant. Oh, come on, why would anybody want to be so humble? Look at the world we live in. Exactly, that's the point, that's the test. You don't know that, you don't understand this. That means you are not the Talmid of Avraham, but rather Talmid of Bilam. Simple. You want to show your stuff. You must do this, you're that. You know, okay, you're right. Call Rabbi Bilam. Rabbi Bilam, that's what you should, Bilam. And a greedy soul. Someone that's greedy is definitely not the Talmid of Avraham Avinu. Greedy, your whole life is about money. Your whole life is about making money. Your whole life is about possessions, material. Even if it means that you're going to step over people in the process. Even if it means you're going to do things that are unethical. Even if it means that what you're doing is illegal. Your greed is so big that you can't even see straight. Bilam, he's your rabbi. He's your rabbi. Rabotai Karim, a lot of people perhaps just met their rabbi, and it wasn't Avraham Avinu. I have some people that literally, on a regular basis, ask me questions, and Baruch Hashem, we succeed in giving them answers, but it baffles my mind how unethical people are. It's unbelievable. Literally, one question after another, they're looking to beat the system. They're looking to cheat the system. One question, listen, if a person asks once in a while a question of, listen, they didn't know, hey, listen, I found this, can I keep it? Hey, listen, somebody gave me this, can I do this? No problem. But literally, sometimes when you get to know people over a period of time, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you see all of their questions show how unethical they are. They're always asking about some way that they're stealing, some way that they're cheating, some way that they're doing something that's simply dishonest. There are some people that have this literally, this tum'ah in their blood, but yet you still have to help them. You still have to help them. Why? The Rambam teaches in Ilchot Girushin that if a husband does not want to give his wife the get, the halacha is we beat him up until he says, yes, yes, I want to give it. Teaching us from there that the inner nature of every Jew is to want to do the will of Hashem. But he has an evil inclination that convinces him otherwise. Each one of us wants to do the will of Hashem, wants to do the right thing. But we have an evil inclination that makes us want to do something wrong. Steal, this, that. Now, some of us have fallen for the trap of the Satan and have done tshuva. Some of us have fallen to the point where we don't even realize we're fallen anymore. And to get us out of there, it's going to take a lot of work. A lot of work. What kind of work, Rabotai? What kind of work? The kind of work, Rabotai, that Rabbi Nachman Breslev, Alav Shalom, says in Lekutei Maharan, that some people, the only thing that's going to wake them up, the only thing that's going to wake them up is beatings from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what's going to wake them up. Beatings from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only thing. We'll finish off with this. In the time of the Arizal, is quoted in a sefer called When You Go Out to War. When You Go Out to War, it's a good book about Tikkun HaBrit. I've mentioned this to you before. It's a sefer by Rabbi Yaakov ben Hanan, Shichyeh. And in a sefer, he gives a famous story about the Arizal, where there was a rich man at that time living in Turkey, where he was the chief treasurer of the Turkish government. He was a Jew. And he was a complete heretic, kept nothing in the Torah, and kept hearing about this tzaddik named the Arizal. Now, the Ari became famous. People knew about him and knew that this is a person that not only knew Torah, but literally was a miracle worker. Something that we haven't seen since the days of the Tanaim, almost 2,000 years before him. And people said many, many things about him, all types of amazing things. And when this rich Jew in Turkey heard about it, he'd make fun of it. Make fun of it. One time, he was drinking a non-kosher wine, which is forbidden for a Jew. It's called Yain Nesech. And before he drank it, he said, L'chaim, to the life of Dari, our Rabbi Dari, making fun of it. At that moment, the Arizal says to his students, he's laughing. He's asked, why are you laughing for the Rav? In the middle of learning. He said, oh, right now there's a Jew in Turkey that's making fun of me. Really? Yeah, in 10 days he's going to come here. And he's going to test me. And that's what happened. 10 days later, this Jew from Turkey came to see the Arizal to see what he's all about. He says, they say that you know things that are beyond the norm. I want to test you. Sure, ask me any question. He says, what did I do last night? And Arizal says, you did such and such. The guy's impressed. He said, you're right, I did do that. And what did I do the day before that? He tells him exactly, this is what you did. And the guy's impressed again. Now Arizal says to him, you know, but there's a lot of other things that you did that are against the will of Hashem, and in fact that Hashem hates. Come to the room privately, I'll show you. And he starts telling him, without the guy asking, all the sins that he made. The guy is shocked beyond belief how he literally didn't open his skeletons in his closet. He took the skeletons out for him. And then he says, and you also did such and such with your maid. And the guy is crying, says, no, Kvod Harav, that's it, no. Everything you said, you're right, I did all of it. But I was never with my maid. That would be very embarrassing for me, somebody in my position. I never touched my maid. The Arizal says to him, I'm going to use a specific name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to prove to you that this is what you did. You want me to do that? He says, Kvod Harav, you can do whatever you want. I didn't do it. He takes his hand and takes the neshama from his own body, the neshama of the non-Jewish woman, the maid that he had, puts her on the table right there. Just like she appears in real life. And she says to the guy, yes, you were with me, don't you remember? Showing him what the Gemara says when a Jew is with a non-Jew, she's glued to him like a dog, meaning the neshama of the Jew is glued to the nefesh of the Goyah. At this moment, the guy was so scared. He saw this, passed out, got up again, started hysterical crying, and felt the shame of Gehenom. The shame that a person feels before they actually enter Gehenom, when the deen, and Hashem shows them all the sins, he felt it. And he says, Rabbi, I'm ready to pay judgment on everything. Please get this embarrassment out of here. The Arizal says to him, you know that the punishment for such a thing is death penalty. He says, Rabbi, I'm ready. I'm ready. Here, he takes a bunch of money out of his purse. He says, take this money, go buy some wood, and you can burn me. Arizal says, no. In the Torah, the Deen Torah is we don't burn with wood. The way we burn in the Torah is with lead. You open your mouth and we pour hot lead into your mouth. You ready to do that? He says, yes, Rabbi, just get this embarrassment out of here. They got lead. The guy laid down. He said, lay down over here. It wasn't tying him up, nothing. He has to want to do this. But the guy was feeling such awful embarrassment. He was open to the whole thing. He was ready to die right there and then. Lay down. He lays down. Open your mouth. Opens his mouth. And he sees the guys coming with the crucible, carrying the lead, the boiling lead. He's crying. He says, admit to what you did. And he admits to all of the sins that he did. Open your mouth. He opens his mouth, and now Arizal puts some honey in his mouth. He goes, you're finished. Get up. HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgives you. Now let me teach you how to do tshuva. Let me teach you how to do tshuva. And he taught him Torah, and the guy stayed at Tzfat next to the Arizal for the rest of his life. He became a complete Baal Tshuva. Sometimes people need to get hit. Sometimes the hits come in form of embarrassment, sometimes in form of a damage of another kind. But the smartest people are the ones that learn it and say, you know what? Enough is enough. It's time for me to do tshuva. It's time for me to help my brother do tshuva. It's time for me to help my sister do tshuva. Enough of me interpreting halacha according to my likings. Enough of me making fun of what is the accepted opinion of the Torah. Enough of thinking I'm smarter than everybody else. Just like I wouldn't walk into a clinic and tell everybody I know more than them, even though I never studied a day of medicine in my life. I wouldn't walk into any type of engineering company and tell them I know how to build better than them, even though I've never spent a single day learning rocket science or anything of the like, so not even calculus math. I'm not going to do it. Why do I feel that I need to go into the Torah world with the smartest people that ever lived, have toiled over this Torah, and tell them I know better than them? Enough. Let me accept what that Torah is, overcome the obstacle, because this is the only way that not only will I be doing the will of Hashem, but I'll start feeling Hashem in my life. I'll start feeling why our religion, why our Torah is divine, and everything else is simply human logic, opinions, and mistakes. Why our Torah is supernatural, and everything else is nothing. BeEzrat Hashem, this will give us the chizuk to do the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to encourage others to do the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and BeEzrat Hashem succeed to end the tragedies in the world, to bring all of those that have passed, whether it's a few days ago or before, at least some nachat, that their death was not in vain. It encouraged us to finally do tshuva. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'amen.
Seven years of lectures. Seven months of film editing. Countless hours of study by two rabbis. Information we received over 3,000 years ago. All for this moment. Whom had greed? The movie.
There's a small member in your body. It shouldn't take over your whole life. If you satiate it, you're never going to have enough.
The Sofer clan, when it gets a hold of something, it does not let go.
Time for us to rectify what we have done.
Normal numbers should be somewhere around 20 million or higher.
You're never going to have control of it. If you start it, only feed it when it's permissible, according to the Torah.
Pornography is as addictive as crack cocaine.
You're always going to be happy, including this world and the next. ברוך ה' לעולם, אמן ואמן.